We are officially called to order at 12:04. And as required, I will read the statement that relates to how we operate during the COVID-19 situation. So pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Town of Chelmsford Board of Assessors will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time by a technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we'll post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay, thank you. So we have two sets of minutes to approve. We have regular session May 15th meetings, and we have executive session May 15th minutes to approve. So I can take a motion from Jack first to do the regular session.
Motion to approve minutes, the meeting.
Okay, motion to approve. I'll second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, thank you. Now, Jack, if you can make a motion to do executive session.
Motion to approve the executive session. I believe it's the same date.
Correct, thank you. I'll second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, approved, both. Okay, very good. Now, do we have any appointments?
None.
None. Okay, let's take this a little bit out of order. Let's, Frank, do you want to just have that discussion again that we had kind of off the record at the beginning, just to get it on the record? You talked about chapter land and so
Sure.
forth. And what we're going to
Pat
do.
Wojcik has been in chapter land for about a decade or so, on about a 5 1/4 acre parcel on Elm Street. She entered into agreement to sell the parcel, which would have be an interrupted use of chapter land and subjected to a rollback tax. Essentially, it's a kind of a provision, kind of like selling real estate, and you have to pay a capital gains and all the years you got depreciation and all that. It captures some of the money saved over the last 5-year look-back period. Simply coming up with the value of what it would have sold at for each year versus what it was actually assessed at, which was quite a bit less, obviously. And then the difference times the tax rate. No interest in this case. So the sum total is about $28,600, which has been paid. So what we're putting before you for your signature is just a commitment to commit that to the collector. This also has to be reported to the Department of Revenue within the next couple of weeks. So that's what I'll be uploading to them as well.
Okay, so just so that I understand clearly.
Yep.
So this has all been done. She's actually paid the tax due, and all that we need to do at this point is
Accounting.
sign off on the commit.
That's it.
Okay, all right. Have any questions, Jack?
Nope.
Okay. All right, thank you. Now, okay, so that's it on that. Let's go to a discussion area on executive session minutes. And I put this on the agenda because it occurred to me that we don't really have a written procedure or policy on how we do executive session minutes. And as we all know, we're required to review these periodically in whatever is considered timely. And at some point they should be released. Now, the only issue is that, as we know, for our specific situation, the assessor situation is a little different, because we do have situations where we go into executive session. And the reason that we go into executive session is because the information itself is confidential. And so, Frank, what is your understanding of, and let's take the example of a hardship exemption.
Right.
Because I think that's probably the worst
It is the
case
worst.
scenario in terms of confidentiality, where we want to try to protect taxpayers' private information.
No question. And the hardship would
Uh,
be an excellent example, but the other
Yep.
exemptions fall into the same category. And generally, what is public information is who received an exemption and an abatement for that matter, and
Mhm.
how much. What's not is the application itself and the content in the application is not subject to public inspection. In terms of executive minutes regarding these, my understanding of it is that they can be released when the reason for having them in executive session has been exhausted. I suppose you could make the case that some of these could have been, if it's a denial, it could be appealed. Suppose we could wait till the end of that appeal period, which would probably be 3 months from when the board took action. That would be kind of an extreme look.
But can I ask a quick question on that?
Yep.
If it doesn't matter whether it could be appealed or even if it's denied, the data in and of itself is
Will never be subject to.
never be
That's
subject
right.
for public review.
No, absolutely, unless subpoenaed, frankly.
Unless
And that's the only
subpoenaed.
time I've ever had it, and I refused to give it until a judge told me to give it.
Absolutely.
And that's the only example. You're absolutely right, Jack. So when you consider the minutes, the minutes relating to an executive session and with respect to exemptions or abatements for that matter, I think we can do so relatively soon. I don't see any reason to wait. They read those, they request the applications. Once again, I would deny them. Anybody seeking any additional information other than what's contained in the minutes. And they can request a full list from me, a full list of all exemptions or abatements granted in the fiscal year I would have to provide.
Okay, so, and that's pretty consistent with my understanding as well. I just want to make sure we're doing this correctly. And if we've made mistakes in the past, then so be it, and, we'll have to correct those. But so generally speaking, if we have a request if we're in executive session to discuss abatements and exemptions, the applications require a certain confidential information to be supplied by the taxpayer, income tax forms and things of that nature. However, the minutes reflect the actions taken. So, once those matters are closed, then we could release those executive session minutes.
Yes.
Now, we have a reference in the minutes to the documents that are attached via a file reference.
Yeah,
So what you're saying, Frank, is that if somebody from the public came in and said, look, that's a public file, you've released the minutes.
yes,
Under the law, you really are prohibited from releasing any of the specific file information. We can release the minutes, but the file information itself would remain confidential.
that's my understanding.
Yeah, okay.
The problem becomes, as I understand it, which these documents are attached to the minutes. Do they then open themselves up to public inspection? To me, no. Not being an attorney, but I would still say that they're protected.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Attorney General and get a ruling.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah, is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, so now I'm going to propose that we do like a 3-month look back. When we do an executive session, we should at least once a quarter take a look at whatever executive session minutes remain unreleased and take a look at those and then make a determination as to whether or not we're in a position to release them. Does that sound reasonable?
It does.
Jack?
I agree.
Okay. All right. Okay, that's good. Anybody, any other issues with that?
I do not.
Can I ask you a question? Like,
Yep.
I'm very confident when you go to the Attorney General that he's going to approve of this. But
Yep.
when we release the minutes and we just have a file number and our actions upon the file number, that's the end. There's nothing attached to that. You had said something, Ring, about that information is attached to it. There's nothing
There's
attached
nothing
to it.
attached to.
They
This-
have to come and ask for this file
Correct.
number, and then we can say no.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And because when we
Okay.
have our sessions normally, those documents stay right here. But there is
Exactly.
some, and that's why I've been somewhat cautious and talked about delivering some of these by hand. And we've been quite reluctant to do it by email. And I'm not real comfortable doing a shared screen thing just because it's out there. That's it. My emails could be subpoenaed. They haven't been, but they could be. If I did it by personal email, it could not be, which I thought about. But when you get into documents that relate to minutes, my understanding is that those are often subject to public action. But like I said earlier, I still think the Attorney General and Town Council, for that matter, will land on the side of the argument that's more protected. At least that's my feeling.
Yeah, okay.
Amen.
I think that's probably right. Okay, that's good. And then once we get this through, I'll write up a very short procedure, and then we can look at it, and you guys could decide, if it's okay, you want to make changes, we'll just go from there. It's just a paragraph, that's all we need. But I just want to make sure that, we have all our ducks in a row for this kind of thing. So, good. Anything else, Frank, that we can do in the open session?
Nothing. I'm all set.
All right, so we can adjourn to executive. So the time is 12:15 p.m. And I have a motion here. I have a motion from Assessor Jack Duffett to adjourn to executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general law, specifically to require confidentiality as defined in Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 60, records of abatements, and Chapter 215, Section 1B, right of privacy, to discuss abatement and/or hardship exemption actions as required, and further, to discuss strategy with respect to pending litigation, not to return to open session. Motion by Assessor Duffett, and I'll second that. And I'll poll the board. Mr. Duffett?
Yeah, aye, yes.
Okay, the chair votes aye. We are now adjourned at 12:16.